How are you?
Hello, how art thou?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Teacher Project 2.0. Sorry we were not here last week. That was on me. It was a really busy week and I was working late every day last week and I just couldn't make it happen. But I'm glad that you guys are here this week. If you come on in, say hi, drop down. And we have a couple of stories to bring you. A quick announcement: when we get off of here, we will be immediately heading over to El Teddy's platform. And if you do not have his link, we'll put his link in the chat. But we will immediately be heading over to El Teddy's platform. Of course, unfortunately, today we got the news that the great icon, rock and roll Hall of Famer Tina Turner has passed, and so we will be over at El Teddy's house planning the funeral. So, other than that news that just devastated all of us, how are you doing today, sir?
I am well, considering.
Okay, all right, all right.
I had to
So, we,
talk to my best friend, but I I just got off the phone with
listen,
him
I might have to
right
go by.
before this.
I might have to do a drive by to Chris's house
Yeah, you
too.
gonna have to drive by Chris's house and make sure he isn't somewhere. He's on suicide watch. Make sure he ain't somewhere comatose.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna check on Chris. Okay. Um, that's El Teddy's link right there. Thank you, Tracy, for already putting it in the chat, honey. Uh, listening while at work. Hope your brother is well. Okay, okay, okay. So we're gonna start with a sad story that I wanted to bring to us. Just giving the state of affairs in education. A story happened here over the weekend, locally, in Maryland, and I just wanted to read you guys the story. Um, it's not a it's not a fun story. So, father was beaten to death in front of home after incident at child school. So this is coming from CBS News. It is dated May the 24th at 11 a.m. A Maryland father of three is dead after a fight at his child's school came to his front door. The man, identified by Anne Arundel Police Department as 43-year-old Christopher Wright, was allegedly attacked outside of his home in Baltimore, Brooklyn neighborhood on Friday, May the 19th. According to police, the incident began earlier that day after a confrontation involving one of his children at Brooklyn Park Middle School. Wright's fiance, Tracy, I'm not even going to play with her name, said that after her 14-year-old son got into a fight at the school, three teens and two adults came to the family's home. And Anne Arundel police described the perpetrators as three or four white men in their mid 20s to mid 30s. Wright's family told CBS Baltimore that the beating was retaliation for the school confrontation. Chris came out to tell them, like, he's not coming out here to fight. And they threatened at one point to come in and get him. And then they said, if he's not going to fight, then you're going to fight. She said that all three children were home at the time. According to 11 News, the incident was caught on security cameras that belonged to Wright. A neighbor's cameras were also captured the beating. Anne Arundel police said that officers responded to the assault around 5 p.m. He was transported to a local trauma center for treatment of a life-threatening injury. Wright was hospitalized where he and died on Saturday, May the 20th, around 9:45 p.m. Police said that detectives from the department's homicide unit are investigating the incident. Now, I brought this to us, and again, like I said, it's a sad story, so I apologize. But I brought this to us because I need you guys once again to understand what we are dealing with in education. When I say that parents are part of the problem, here's an example of what I mean by parents are part of the problem. Now, I don't know what happened at the school. I don't know if the little boy started the fight or if the other people started. I have no idea, nor do I care. But the fact that adults feel like it was appropriate to take their children to somebody else's home to finish a fight that started at school, I need y'all to understand this is what we deal with every day. We have had parents come into the building to fight teachers. We have had parents come into the building to fight students. We have had parents bring other people to the school to fight other students. And the mentality, I don't understand it. I mean, El Teddy, am I crazy? I don't understand the mentality that says to you that that is the right decision. That is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know.
I mean, it's always been an issue. However, in recent times, with this notion that people in positions of power have made parents feel as if the school is their playground or the school is the place with which they have complete authority. Let's be clear. A school, like any public building, belongs to the public, to the community at large, not one individual. So the safety of all people, the well-being of all people, even down to the instruction of all in that building must be taken into consideration. We have laws across the country dictating that one parent can come and stop entire books, and we'll get there later, and literature and art from being in a classroom or in an entire school system. We have laws in place by one parent that complains, and now my child isn't allowed to be addressed by the pronouns that I say that my child can or is allowed to be addressed by. There is it's completely open season. The toothpaste is out of the tube. This is not going to stop. And in addition to that, the vigilante justice that has been unsheathed across the country in a lot of these states, these are battlegrounds. People have been told not only is it um, a state where you no longer have to have a gun license. Not only is it a state where you it's an open carry for anything, this is also a state where it's a stand your ground law. But those stand your ground laws only apply to certain people or to certain situations. Because I really wonder what's going to happen. You had three children who literally watched the murder of their father, one of them knowing that they may have been directly responsible for that murder. Do you even understand the level with which that child is having to endure mental duress? I mean, the level of mental duress that that will cause on an adult, but you're talking about a middle school child. And the behaviors of these parents are exactly like their middle school children. Like there's a lot of arrested development going on across the fruited plains, and this is just another prime example of that.
Facts. So I again, I know that was a sad story, but I heard that this morning. It sort of shocked me, and I see that it's making headlines because I've seen it on a couple of blogs. So it's becoming a story that's leaving outside of the area. So it'll be interesting as more information comes out. And like I said, I don't know anything about the altercation that happened at school. I don't care. I don't care. Okay. Where do we want to go? Do we want to go to Massachusetts with the cell phones? Do we want to go to North Carolina? Do we want to go to the online education company? Where you want to go next, Dr. El
For
Teddy?
Florida, don't forget we have Florida not to be left out.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I got to go back to that one. I didn't get the Florida
You
one.
gave us the Florida story this week.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Not no, actually, it's not in Florida. It's in Miami, my fair city.
All right. So where do you want to start?
Let's get Edmodo out of the way. I'm very familiar with Edmodo. We used to use them a lot in my school district.
All right. All right. I'm email you. I'm gonna read the article from my phone, but I'm gonna email it to you now. My bad, y'all. You're right. I did. We talked about this earlier this week. Okay. So let's go on and get into this. We have a Florida story. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Or as El Teddy likes to clarify, we have a
No, I thought we were doing the Edmodo, the one with
oh, North Carolina.
online company. No, the one with the company
Oh,
that
oh,
was
oh, oh,
selling.
oh.
Yeah, the
No
name of the
problem.
company is Edmodo. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yes, no problem. I've heard of Edmodo. I've heard of Edmodo.
Yeah, it was really popular at one point.
Hello, Moto. That's what I hear. I know that's not the same thing, but that's just what I think of. All right. So we're gonna drop this link in the chat. We're gonna get to this story. Um, and this is coming from the Messenger. This article, I'm dropping the link in the chat now. Right, Tracy. Nobody's shocked about a Florida story. It's coming from the Messenger, and it was updated 6 hours ago. So, what was published six hours ago? Online education company fined $6 million by the FTC for selling student data to advertisers. Now, I'm not going to begin to tell you how that is a FERPA violation, but we'll keep going. The Federal Trade Commission has issued an order against Edmodo, alleging the education technology firm unlawfully collected and used children's data for advertising purposes without parental consent. Edmodo now faces a $6 million penalty despite ceasing operations last year. Edmodo provided virtual classrooms for millions of U.S. students. However, they failed to secure verifiable parental consent for gathering children's personal data, therefore violating Children's Online Privacy Protection Act rule, the COPPA rule. The FTC's proposed order indicates that Edmodo supplied advertisers with the gathered personal data in action only permissible with the necessary parental approval. In May of 2022, the FTC initiated an investigation into Edmodo's operations. By September, the company had completely ceased operation. The proposed $6 million fine has been suspended due to the company's financial incapacity. Should Edmodo attempt to relaunch, the FTC proposes a set of restrictions, including the necessity of explicit parental consent before using personal data for advertising purposes. The proposed order awaits approval from the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. What you got to say?
Here's a interesting idea. You say, oh, well, the company conveniently just months, like 6 months after they had come under fire from the FTC, saying that they were being investigated, magically they stopped operations. And now you all are saying, oh, even though there's a proposed $6 million fine, we're just not going to get that because they don't have the capacity with which the capability to do that. And call bullshit because, in my estimation, if the company's closed, I guarantee you there were lofty severance packages to the CEO and the rest of the C suites. And when these things come down, make them culpable. Go ahead and start to garnish their wages. Because I'm sure the CEO of Edmodo landed comfortably at some other software, education software company where he's probably making much more than $6 million. These are very lucrative contracts and very lucrative positions. Go ahead and charge him the $6 million. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, because if you're around
But
here
yeah,
selling kids information, really cloaking yourself
I
under the guise of an education software? Right.
I mean I agree. I feel like there has to be a way that you sell off whatever. I mean, I know it's technology, so it's not physical, but I don't care if you just selling the laptops, whatever that you sell. It seems to me like that those proceeds should go towards the fine, because what it's not like you accidentally did it, you didn't realize you did it, like you knowingly violated this law. You knew what you were doing. And again, this goes back to non-traditional forms of education feeling as though they don't have to follow the rules. The reality of the situation is, like I said, that is a clear violation of FERPA. Like you couldn't walk into a public school and access that information. So why should you be able to do it through an online school? Thank you, Janae. Janae always gives us the point of view. She says that I can speak on this higher from a higher ed perspective if needed. Go ahead. We always want you to join in because we know you have that purview. Um, but yeah, like you couldn't like you can't just like an advertiser, a company can't walk into a public school and say, "Hey, I need the age and location, and address of every student in this school." Like you couldn't do that. There's just and you can't say, or a school principal can't talk to a company and say, okay, I'm going to forward you over all of my students' names, ages, and address, so that you can send them some advertisement. That is not how that you can. There's no misunderstanding that you can't do that. So this
The
company
other part
knowing,
about it is they probably have not even informed these students and parents. Like, have they said, hey, by the
that's
way,
that's
your
the other
information was
question.
compromised?
Now that's valid, El Teddy. That's another thing. Have these parents been notified that this information was sold? Now that's another good question. Thank you, Janae. Thank you, Janae, for backing me up. She said it's a FERPA violation. Exactly. That is a clear FERPA violation. FERPA. Oh Lord. FERPA stands for free. Oh
I
shoot.
used to know what it stood for. It's been so long since I've had to even, because you just FERPA is something that you don't play around with. It's
Thank you.
family
Thank you, Tracy.
education
Family Educational Rights and
rights or
Privacy Act.
something. Something.
Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, I knew it was something
Janae.
with family. Thank you,
Yeah.
Janae. I knew it was something with family. But FERPA violations are something that you don't play around with. Let's be clear.
No, FERPA is the kind of stuff. You violate FERPA, you will be under a federal receivership. Your school district could be under a federal receivership. You mess around and violate FERPA. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm saying like there's like it may not seem like a big deal to some people. Like oh what that like again it goes back to again the non traditional public schools basically being able to get away with whatever they want to get away with.
I'll give you another example of this on the college level. And Janae, correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of HBCUs were in violation of FERPA because you had individuals that were 18 in college, but they were sending that child's information on in terms of transcripts and grades without consent of the child. I mean, of the adult at that point, which
Yep.
and a lot of HBCUs were doing that where they would say, oh, let me mail home to the parents this report card or this the grades for that semester, and they were in violation, and a lot of them have corrected that, but parents are still expecting that, oh, I can't call and get my son or daughter's grades. Ma'am, sir, they are 18 years old and you have to get consent from them because we are
I
being
know my
violated.
listen, I know my
Mhm.
parents were not happy about that my freshman year and they couldn't get my grades. They were like, because actually they got my first semester grades. No, no, they didn't. No, they didn't because I turned 18 the July before I started college. So yeah, but it came to the house. And my mama was like, what you mean I can't open it? I was like, you can't open my mail, I mean, she did anyway, but that's not the point. Um, but yeah, a lot of parents, yeah. So the reality
Mhm.
is, again, these, and I'm with you, El Teddy. Get blood from that turnip. There's money there. There's money there.
Absolutely, there's money there. So,
Child, all right. Well, let's go on and hop around. Uh, where we want to go next, child?
don't go to Florida yet. I need a few pieces of candy before I spike out with Florida. I'm not ready yet.
A few pieces of candy. All right. Well, you want to do North Carolina. I mean, do you
Yeah,
want me
let's
to
do
say?
North Carolina. Sure.
All right, let's do North Carolina. Now, North Carolina is in the top five, I think. I mean, we have our Holy Trinity, but I think North Carolina is in the top five. What you
North
think?
Carolina to me is the original third piece of the Holy Trinity. Other people fight North Carolina on it, but to me, North Carolina continues to say, please understand and respect our gangster. Please. Hmm.
Hmm. Right. See, Tracy said my son started college at 17, so I was able to get his first semester grades, and then it stopped. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Let's get into this North Carolina situation. Now, this is coming from Fox 8. I saw this a couple of days ago, so it's a couple of days old, but it was originally posted on May 22nd, but it was updated on May the 23rd. So it's not too bad. It's not too. We tried to give you guys as up to date articles as possible, so that the 23rd isn't too far off. Raleigh, North Carolina. This is coming from Fox 8 News. With his name on no ballot, North Carolina Governor Ray Cooper is sparing no words in attacking the Republican controlled General Assembly, this time saying that there is a state of emergency for public education. Cooper lost in a veto override votes on pistol permits and then a restructuring of abortion rights to the GOP's supermajority in both the House and the Senate, two issues he campaigned heavily to combat in the public arena. Hold on. Now he's citing smaller raises for teachers coupled with a cut in state revenue in the Senate's proposed budget and the expansion of private school vouchers as significant problems that are aiming to choke the life out of public education. There is no executive order like there is for a hurricane or a pandemic, Cooper said, but this is no less important. The Senate's budget gives teachers a 4.5% raise over the next 2 years and plans to cut the personal and corporate income tax rates, making the personal rate 4.5% by 2024, which Cooper cited primarily as a tax break for millionaires. The House suggested a 10.2% raise for teachers, and the bi- biennium in the
Biennium. Hmm.
biennium. Thank you, babe. And Cooper had pushed for 18% in the budget concept he provided earlier in the spring. Senators cite the 34.8 billion budget for education these next 2 years as a strong investment. The Senate has given veteran teachers a 200. Wait a minute. Nope.
You saw it. They'll go ahead and read it. That's correct. That's not a typo.
The Senate has given veteran teachers a $250 spread over 2 years. That is a slap in the face and will make our teacher shortage worse. That is a quote. The House, that's a quote from the governor. The House soon will reject the Senate's budget, which will begin a conference process to achieve compromise. Cooper's veto pen eventually will get another test. And that window of opportunity is why Cooper is imploring the public to get involved now while there still could be an impact. I'm fighting back and I need you too, Cooper said. He directed the public to his website where the banner links to information about the situation and coaches the public on how you can connect with your state legislatures and tell them to support public education. Commit to call, write, or visit with legislators. Our children need us right now, he said. Senate Leader Phil Berger, a Republican, responded quickly with a statement from his spokesperson. Meaningless publicity stunts do nothing to improve educational outcomes in our state. Randy, I'm not going to do that, of the state president pro temp office wrote in response to a query from WGHP. The House and Senate will continue working together to put forward budget proposals that address the needs of students and parents. They go on to talk about the voucher expansion, which we've talked about vouchers, so you guys know what that is. And then it says other issues. So here's some of the other issues: 5,000 teacher vacancies that need to be breached, which is where he said the average pay raises exasperated the problem. Senators have touted raising the starting pay level significantly to address the need to recruit and investment in education programs for teachers. The need to invest in early education, about which he said lawmakers are turning their backs on children, parents, and businesses that want to hire those parents. Lawmakers have included some funding for child care assistance in their budgets. The political culture wars that he said will put politicians in charge of curriculum setting, micromanage what teachers can teach, and target LGBTQ plus students. He mentioned the elimination of some science classes and the restructuring of history curricula. The North Carolina I know was built on support for public schools. He said, "We can't let the legislature tear them down." I'm still stuck at $250. I just need you to know that.
Here's the thing, that's not uncommon. Here's how, and I'm sorry, I usually try to keep myself from use of expletives on Teacher Project 2.0. However, here's the dumb shit that you see over and over and over by state legislatures in their failed attempts at addressing the issue with regard to teacher pay. They throw all of the money at first year teachers, thinking that's going, oh, we're going to raise the minimum salary, never addressing all of those veteran teachers, along the way in all of those steps, all the way up to retirement. So you have states where they have raised the minimum teacher salary for a first year teacher to maybe 45,000, but in that same state they left the top salary at 55 or 58. Something just, it's just crazy like that. See, this is their way of addressing it, which is why they feel like, oh well, they're a veteran teacher. We don't need to worry about them. They're in it for the long haul. They don't want to give up their retirements and pensions. I mean, they dangle that over people's head, thinking that people won't leave. But public education is at critical mass right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? We got all of that going on. We got all of the garbage going on with state legislatures making wholesale changes to all of educational curriculums across this country. And it's not going to get any better. Let me give you all some statistics to let you know this is not going to get any better. Here's the scary part. In the great state of North Carolina, really be, if you look at I'm going to give you an example. Look at the popular vote from the 2020 election, right? The former president 45 won North Carolina by 1 percentage point. He had
Right.
49 point something. Biden had 48 point something, right? So you would think that that means the electorate is almost equal, right? They have gerrymandered this thing and fixed the system where they have a super majority there. Then they got things like people who run as a Democrat, and 6 months into them getting set in the legislature of North Carolina as a Democrat, they go, oh, I changed my mind. I'm going to become Republican now. These are the political games that we have being played. So when the American public says, no, this is how we feel, this is how we want, we have people in positions of power that are wholesalely saying, I don't care what you want. So if you're looking for these people to make significant changes in education, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. They are not going to do that. They are going to continue to do whatever it takes to make their agendas go through. Damn how the public feels. And I feel really be that in the next 15, and it may 10 to 15 years, it may not be that long, we're going to see a point where you have either just as many private students in private schools as you have in public schools, or you may end up having more students in private schools or charters than you do in public schools. I'm telling you, we're at the tipping point where the balance is going to shift from having more students in public schools to having more students in private and charter. And once that happens, they're going to take all of the money from public schools. and that'll be their justification.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just saying.
I listen. I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing with you. Yeah. I'm not arguing with you. It's just ugh. I can't. I just. Oh God. Okay. Trying to get my life together. Okay. I mean, you said it all. I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, I've been saying this. This is what I've been yelling since we started this podcast. Is that the state of education is at a point of a state of emergency. Like we are there. We are there, and the pandemic just exasperated what we were already dealing with. It exasperated it. All right. Where do we want to go next? Do we want to talk about these cell phones, and then we
Sure.
want to end with your fair city?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you guys. I'm putting the link in the chat for this article. Art World said, I'm on the edge of putting my girls in private. Right now, they're in public charter, but it's been a struggle for them to employ teachers. Yeah, yeah. And charter schools have such a heavy, and this is a general statement, so this is not every charter school, but charter schools have such a high rate of turnover is because they do not, in a lot of cases, they don't have the same regulation as a public school. Um, they're very right to work. So at the end of the year, they can pretty much terminate anybody they want at will without having to go through unions. Most charter schools do not have a union. Um, so they don't have to deal with unions and deal with corrective action and progressive discipline and all of that. They can basically say, hey, we don't think this is a good fit, and good job, good life, good luck to you. And so there's a lot of turnover. Also, there are teachers that get into charter, and again, because there is not a lot of regulation, the expectation is at a point where a lot of teachers are like, I don't have to deal with this. I know there's one charter school. I'm not going to name the company because I ain't trying to go there, but they rhymes with RIP. But they
Really? Really? I mean, if you're in education, you know exactly who she's talking about. And she's so horrible because they have schools all over the country. But let's be clear,
They
they have.
do. I know the schools here in DC. I can't speak for all of them, but they're all pretty much the same model. But anyway, I know the schools here in DC. Their teachers had to be on call. Their teachers had to be on call 24 hours. Like if a parent, matter of fact, I think they had to give their parents their phone, like their personal phone numbers, like they had to. That was that they were obligated to do that. Again, they may have changed that policy over the last few years, but I know when I was working as an advocate, when I was an advocate for students with special needs, they were probably our biggest violator because they absolutely did not want to accommodate IEPs and they would just put your kid out. I remember I had a student who was a little person and they didn't want to accommodate her height. They didn't want to accommodate get a desk for her, or I mean we weren't asking them to change the bathrooms and all of that. We were like, can you just get a desk that she can sit in? You know? And they basically their result was, well, she needs to find another school. It's like, really? I had another student, same thing. They were like, well, we'll pay for a tutor and he can just go to I think it was like his mother was taking him to work every day. And they were like, well, we'll just send a tutor to her job. I'm like, that's not what are you talking about? That's not a solution. So I'm sorry, I went left. Let me get back. So
You
yeah,
did. And now you have people mentioning the name of this charter school in the comment section. You are a horrible person.
but I just know that the expectation for their teachers was ridiculous. And so a lot of teachers at the end of the year were like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to stay here till 6 o'clock at night. I'm not going to have my parents have my personal phone number where they can call me whenever they want. And then they were obligated to return phone calls. It was just within a certain window of time. It's just a lot. It was a lot. So a lot of teachers leave the charter school and private school sector for those types of reasons as well. So anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put that out there. Oops. Did I do that?
Mm, mm. I mean, hell, at this point, public schools ain't a whole lot better in some areas, but let me be quiet.
Well, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. You are not wrong. All right. So, this is coming from Boston News, CBS Boston, WBAZ or WBZ, no A in there, just WBZ. This is dated, or was last updated on today at 7 o'clock this morning. So let me read it to y'all. The Massachusetts Board of Education is now considering whether or not to restrict. Okay, I got a pop up ad here. Sorry. To restrict the use of electronic devices like cell phones in school. There are already schools in the state that are limiting when students can use phones at school, and others have banned phones altogether. A new Surgeon General report outlines the profound risk of social media to kids and their mental health, and Education Commissioner Jeff Riley wants the board to consider the issue on a statewide level. On Tuesday, he invited students and school leaders who abide by local restrictions to speak to the board. Teachers that enforce it more regularly, if they see a phone on a desk, you're sent down to the office. I've actually had really good experiences in those cases, and I've made closer connections. My time is better spent in those classes, and that's hard. I'm sorry, and that's hard perspective for me to have because I want to be on my phone sometimes, says Teresa Scrimmonger, a Milford High School student. It's not just about the distraction in class as the students who take extended bathroom breaks in order to check their phones, but it's, as you've heard, about the students who are more likely to turn to their phone than they would to turn to talk to the person next to them, and about the precious class time that's spent policing cell phone policy. The impact on relationships between teachers and students when teachers are constantly having to police cell phones, said Johanna Glazier, a teacher at Concord Carlisle High School. Riley said once the board makes a decision, if it involves new restrictions, school will participate in a pilot program to test any new cell phone policy. Go ahead. I have a lot to say, so you go ahead.
Most of these uh, incidents that you see with fights between teacher and student is cell phone related. I would
Mm-hmm.
venture to tell you 90 to 95% of them are probably stem from cell phone. Let's be clear. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's probably inconceivable for you to have an all out ban. I don't know that that toothpaste can be put back in the tube. I don't see a situation where you can have an all out ban on cell phones. Parents will fight you on it because parents want to have the opportunity to have access to their child at any given moment. But at the same time, we see that parents often aren't the best one in making decisions about what's best for a child while they're in school. Because I can be clear to you, you texting your child in the middle of class isn't the best thing for that child. Now, I could because I can argue and I can give you all of the scenarios. Like really, B and I have 8,714,138 different experiences, scenarios, anecdotes, and examples as to how, why, and situations as to where phones are problematic. Let me take a different approach and perhaps talk about maybe some solutions. I say you do this. Go back to having lockers. They don't have to be lockers, they can be see through lockers. We know that they have the ability to make see-through lockers. Go back to having lockers, and you tell students, hey, listen, when you are in a class, before you go to class, you need to go put your phone inside of the lockers, and let that be it. And when you need, and when you're in between classes or on lunch or whatnot, then you're gonna get your cell phone back. And then to reinforce it, here's what you do, because they already have the technology available. Put the technology in the classroom that scrambles the reception, where there's no, as soon as you walk into the door of that classroom, there's no reception. And then if you needed a situation where there needed to be a reception in the classroom for emergencies, there would be an emergency button that the teacher would have that would allow, that device to be shut off, the device that scrambles or eliminates cell phone reception. Like, there's ways around it to do it and to make it where you can make it better. Because if you do that and they have no reception, then they just on their phone doing anything, doing nothing, doing nothing.
The problem is they will sit in there and do nothing. Like they will still, because we have. I mean, a lot of kids don't have. The phones aren't even cut on. But as long as they can connect to the internet
That's
or
what I'm
Wi-Fi,
saying. You give them no, you make it where there's no access to that.
right? So
That's what I'm
here's my
saying.
2 cents. I hear you. Here's my 2 cents on it. 100% what you just said about most of these altercations that we're seeing online as it relates to parents, I mean teachers and students, is about a phone. 100% agree that you would have to get the parents on board, because I do not even want to tell you the amount of times that a parent calls a child while they are literally sitting in my class. Um, it can work. I have been in a couple of, I would have a couple of suggestions on how it can work, because it can work. The problem is this, it's just like a uniform policy. Uniform policies can work if you are in an environment where it is made a priority and there's an enforcement if the rule has been violated. But if you work in a school where the administration doesn't care whether the kids are in uniform or not, or the administration allows kids to make excuses for why they're out of uniform. Oh, I forgot to do my laundry. Oh, my shirt doesn't fit anymore. Oh, my shirt was dirty. Oh, I stayed at my dad's house last night and I left my uniform. If you continuously give them excuses, then basically what you're doing is you might as well not have the policy. I worked at a school where, and if granted, this was when I was at the charter school, and the population was a lot smaller. So I preface that. And at the time, I was an administrator. I was a 10th grade level administrator. All four grade level administrators at the beginning of the day, once the kids went through security, they had to come to us and give us their phone. We put it in a Ziploc bag with their name. We put it in it was in a bin, and it was stayed in our office to the end of the day. At the end of the day, we handed they had to come back through before they left the building, and we handed the cell phones out. Was it time consuming? Yeah. Did it work? Yes. It got to the point where every once in a while the kid they learned how to take the batteries out of the phone, so it didn't set off the because they went through metal detectors. It didn't set off the metal detector. So every once in a while they slid one in, but it was so easy to deal with that one student, because a teacher would just fill out an incident report and send it to us. And we had an online program where once the teacher uploaded the incident report, the grade level administrator got the alert. So I would get an email saying that this teacher just filled out an incident report, and if it was a cell phone violation, I just went to the teacher classroom and was like, "Come here, give me the phone." It was just automatic. But again, that was a lot smaller of a population. I know in my classroom prior to the Panorama, I think I told you guys this before. I had a shoe rack, one of those old shoe racks, like it was like a cloth shoe rack. I had it hanging in my classroom. The kids knew when they came in my room, put their phone in the shoe rack, and there was a number index card in the in the slot. They would put their phone in. They take the index card out, and before anybody left the room at the end of class, I made sure everybody had their phone. Now, again, that didn't take no time, because once you set up the routine, the kids know. But the problem, once again, is when the child violates the rule, because my district already has a no cell phone policy, it's just not enforced. Then I have to rely on administration to give that next layer. And if that next layer isn't there, then the whole system falls apart. Can it work? Yes. Is it going to be hard and time consuming? And are you going to have to find, like you just said, El Teddy, you're going to have to put systems in place that allow for emergencies and systems in place that allow for, absolutely. You're going to have to do it. The toothpaste is out of the tube though. And so it will be, I ain't gonna say impossible, but very, very difficult. But you have to set a culture, and it has to go from the top down, from the principal. It has to be important to everybody.
I think in these situations, one thing that we neglect to really talk about, who really, and even like, and I've noticed it with uniforms and cell phones, some of the biggest problems are our colleagues, those teachers that we have who have poor classroom management, or those teachers who don't know how to, manage the room, how to, de-escalate situations, and how to really get a situation where a student will, do what you need them to do and follow the rules. And so what we have is, we have a situation where our students used to tell me all of the time, Doc Lewis, when I go to your class, I don't have no problem doing it because I know you are the same way with everybody. The structure
That's
is
the
in place.
expectation.
You're gonna be the same. You are consistent, and I don't have no problem. If I mess up in your class, I absolutely will go ahead because I know I messed up. But in so and so class, they be wishy washy, and they'll, or they have their favorites who they, and there's the problem where you have, even when you sometimes have a great administration, you still run into situations where there's a culture in place. You still run into situations where individuals inside those classrooms, our colleagues, our teachers, just are poor classroom managers, and that ends up biting them in the butt and ends up being a problem, um, for the whole system. It turns the whole system topsy turvy.
I agree with you 100%, and that's why I'm saying, like, I agree. And contrary to popular belief, students, children, forget students, children, contrary to popular belief, children do enjoy discipline and structure. They complain, they fuss, but at the end of the day, they appreciate the
Hmm.
structure. Like you said, you don't have a problem. You didn't have a problem with kids following the rules because they were consistent. Same thing with me. If a student didn't put their phone in the I called it my cell phone hotel. I called it my cell phone hotel. If they didn't put their phone in the cell phone hotel and I caught them on the phone, I literally only had to do this. I only had to point, and they knew what I meant, and they would get up and they would do it, and I didn't get any pushback. And let's be clear, I had the knuckleheads. Okay, I didn't start teaching the AP kids and the IB kids until literally the year of the Panorama. Okay, so I had the knuckleheads. And I could get the knuckleheads to do exactly what I needed them to do. They also have to know that it's coming from, they have to feel safe, and they have to know that it's coming from a place of uh I don't want to say love, but that it's coming from a place of, like you said, consistency. I don't know, I'm just gonna leave it there. Right, Janae, consistency is key. Tracy said my son's high school has a slot on the side of the desk that you drop your phones in, and it holds the phone like halfway down the desk. They also have those boxes, like the almost a lockers where the kids can put them in the box and lock it. They have the bags. Like, they have a lot of the things, but those are not cheap either. And for a public school system, if you've got
Hmm.
15,000 students and you got to put one in every classroom, that stuff isn't cheap. That stuff isn't cheap. So that's
I
the
mean,
other side.
I've consistently taught at high school where we have 3,000 plus students.
Right.
So you can only
So you,
imagine how much it
right.
costs to buy
Right.
anything that's going to involve
Because I looked
3,000
into it.
students.
Now they're probably cheaper now than they when they first came out, because I actually looked into the little locker thing. And I forgot, it was a couple of $100, and that was for like a 30 slot one. So again, you figure if you've got in a school of in a school of 3,500 kids, you have to have a faculty of over 200 at least. So
Hmm.
you figure you get one of those, and for some classes they need two because they're gonna have classes over 30.
Hmm.
Uh, You multiply that by $200. No school budget can absorb that. No school budget can absorb that. So again, it's a great idea, and it may even work at a pilot school because again, like I know El Teddy, they're going to choose the pilot school. They're not going to choose that the school that's got 3,500 students. They're going to choose the school that's got 300 students. That's probably a application school or some sort of advanced school. What's the word I'm looking for? A tag program or something like that. That's
Management
gonna be the school
program.
they use. Yeah, that's gonna be the school they do as the pilot. They ain't gonna choose those 3,500 kids. That ain't the one, on the south side of Boston. That ain't the one they gonna choose. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Yanni
yeah.
said my school's junior high has the boxes on their desk and it doesn't lock until the 1 hour timer goes off on them. But we are in a smaller town. His whole class was 72 students. Yeah. Like El Teddy probably had a class in his school that had 72 kids in just a class, in the math
Hmm.
class. I mean, I'm
Yeah. Oh
exaggerating.
yeah.
Certainly over
Hell,
30.
I taught English, and English are always the smallest classes in the building. I had a 1 year 48 in my English class, 48,
Yeah.
and
My,
they
I think
determine class
my
size.
largest class, yeah, I think my largest class size might have been 37, 38. My largest class size when I was in
And we
DC.
have Florida laws that dictate classroom size, and they would just pay the fine. They would just pay the fine. Oh, we got a fine. Here we go.
Well, that's what they would do with us. In DC, it's in our when I worked in DC. If you have a class size over a certain amount, they just had to pay you some sort of per diem. They just paid the per diem because it's like where are the kids going to go? We don't. If we had another option, they wouldn't be in your class. And so they just I forgot what the per diem was, but for every student over, I think the cap was 31 or 32, or something like that, or it might have been less than that. But whatever it was, for every kid you had over that cap, it was a I don't remember the exact amount, but it was for every kid over that cap, you got a certain amount of money. So I mean, for a lot of the teachers, that stopped them from complaining because it gave them an extra little, maybe a couple of $100 on their paycheck, a couple, a month. Um, but yeah, my nephew's middle school had the lock pouch for the phone. Right, that's what I'm saying. There are things that are out there, but again, it's the money to buy it, and like El Teddy said, it's the teacher consistency within the classroom. And again, the smaller schools absolutely can enforce these, but we're talking about, again, hello. Oh, okay. Ooh, girl. But we're talking about the classrooms that I mean, at the schools that have 3,500 students in the building, like that. Yeah, yeah. So we'll keep. I'm interested to see what happens with this. I'm gonna try to keep an eye on this one, and see where this one goes. But of course, we're gonna end with El Teddy City, honey. El Teddy City. I'm gonna read it, and I'm not gonna say nothing else. I'm gonna let El Teddy just have it. I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna just read it, and I'm not gonna say another word. Uh, I'm gonna put the link in the chat, and let's get into it. All right. Hey. Oh Lord. Close. All right. Gutted. This is coming from the Bradenton Herald, and this is dated Wednesday, March the 24th. Okay. Gutted. Amanda Gorman speaks out after Miami school bans poem read at Biden's inauguration. So this is an update to the original story, but I'm sure they're going to give you the backstory as I read through this article. A nationally known poet said Tuesday she is gutted after learning that a school in Miami Dade barred elementary school children from reading her poem and three other library titles following the complaint of a parent. Amanda Gorman, the youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history, recited the poem The Hill We Climb at the inauguration of President Joe Biden on January 20th, 2021. Gorman, who is now 25 and a Harvard graduate, is an award winning writer based in Los Angeles. Book bans aren't new, said Gorman in a statement shared on Twitter. Often, all of it takes to remove these works from our libraries and schools is a single objection. Gorman, a black woman, added, most of the forbidden works are by authors who have struggled for generations to get on the bookshelves. The majority of these censored works are by queer or non white voices. Her poem celebrates the United States not as a perfect union, but as an unfinished nation that yearns for equality and inclusion. An excerpt from the poem reads, somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken but simply unfinished. On Monday, the Miami Herald reported that a review committee at Bob Graham Education K through 8 Center in Miami Lakes and Miami-Dade Public School determined that the poem had three other titles, The ABCs of Black History, The Cuban Kids, and Love to Langston, were better suited for middle school students and would be shelved in the middle school section of the media center. One book, Countries of the News, Cuba, will remain available for all students in the Media Center. The school committee, composed of three teachers, a library media specialist, a guidance counselor, and the school's principal, among others, took up the issue after a parent of two students at the school objected to the books, saying they included references of critical race theory. Oh my gosh, I thought we had got over them, indirect hate messages, gender ideology, and indoctrination, according to records obtained by the Florida Freedom to Read Project and shared with the Miami Herald. Tuesday night, Miami Dade schools argued no literature had been banned or removed. The staff said books were shelved in the middle school section of the Media Center and remain available there. I wrote The Hill We Climb so all young people could see themselves in a historical moment, Gorman said. Robbing children of the chance to find their voices in literature is a violation of their right to free thought and free speech. Gorman's publisher, Penguin Random House, joined PEN America, a centennial nonprofit that fosters the freedom to create literature, in a lawsuit in Florida's Escambia County to challenge a similar book restriction. Together, this is a hill we just won't climb, but a hill we will conquer, Gorman said. So that's sort of both stories in one. I had I sent El Teddy the story about the original ban or relocation, and then Gorman's response. I'm just going to shut up and let you talk.
It's very rich to me that this woman who requested this book ban, she's of Cuban descent. Y'all done did my homework on what's going on here. She's of Cuban descent. Okay. Let's be clear. White presenting Cubans, and you know I've said this many times over, really be white presenting Cubans, since they came to this country, only afforded that opportunity because of a racist law like wet foot, dry foot that was on the books for 40 plus years, were made to feel like they have their own version of white privilege and white supremacy that they do not have. So much so that they are some of the staunchest of racists that you will find. Cubans in Miami-Dade County are some of the most racist people that you will find. They are staunchly conservative, staunchly Republican. So much so, they are even discriminatory and bigoted toward other Latinx members of the Latinx community. They want no parts of the other Latin X community. If you're a Puerto Rican, you damn sure not going to be Dominican, because you already know why they don't like Dominicans, really, be right. We know the story about why a whole lot of Latinx country don't like their Dominican brothers and sisters. That's a whole other story. But if you're any other, they look down on them. They look down, they actually enact laws and support laws against immigration reform. They actually are the ones presenting laws that discriminate against their own people. So would I think that it would be any different that when we have a poem, literally a poem, not talking about the divide of this country, not even talking about the country being a horrible place. Simply saying we're not a horrible country. We're simply a country that isn't yet finished. And because those words were uttered out of a black mouth, even though those are the words that they would like you to believe, it came out of the mouth of a black woman, and they want no parts of it. None at all. And that's the real problem. The problem isn't what she said. The problem is there's a black woman saying it. And that's why there's no going back on this. There's not in our lifetime really be where this is about to get better. There's no magic wand that's going to be waved. There's no up and coming person that's going to come and get both sides to coalesce. It's not happening. And so the very same people who during the pandemic were fighting tooth and nail saying that we have religious freedoms and we are all about the freedom of the individual and individual rights now are the same very same people taking rights from people. Like make sense of that. Please make sense of that. Please make every bit of sense of that. I keep saying we are right now careening down the slippery slope to authoritarian government. We we are following the blueprint of someone who said they learned the blueprint from us. That person being Adolf Hitler. Because he said, and really be you're my history buff, he said, oh no, I learned that from the people over in America. I stole their blueprint. And now we're following his blueprint. Like literally, her poem is preaching the same thing that these people are saying. Are these people really be not saying, "Oh, America's a great place. Oh, America is such a wonderful place." The poem talks about how great America is, how we just have some things that we're still working on. But they want no parts of that. You want to know why she didn't want those books in the library about Cuba? Because the books in the library talks about the fact that in Cuba they have equal rights and protection for all Cubans. Because let's talk about the real reasons they brought their asses over here. It's because in Cuba they said we're not going to have differentiation between the Afro Cubans and the white presenting Cubans. Everybody's going to be treated the same. And they said, no, let us flee to a country where we know that our white presenting selves can be treated better than people who have darker skin than us. Let's go down that road. And here's another scary thought for those same people down there. I want you to tell me how this is going to end, where you, as a Cuban American, are fighting to make bigoted and racist decisions on black people when white people across America are going to start to do the same thing to Hispanic and Latinx people, and it's going to involve you as well. So I want you to know how it's going to feel with these same rules that you're doing to queer people, to black people, that you're trying to enact on queer people, black people, and all types of other people. You're doing to it's going to end up happening to you. I meant to send you the article also really be I did it on my channel yesterday that Florida also passed a law that says even though we want no black books and we're having a problem with AP Black History, now it's required law that every school must by law teach AAPI history. So we're going to eliminate Black history. We don't want any parts of that. But now there's state law that says every school must now teach AAPI history. Not that I have a problem with it, but where's that same smoke for our history?
They don't
I'm gonna
have
try
it.
not to spike out. I'm gonna try not to. I'm just gonna be quiet.
I mean, they don't have it. I mean, that's just it. That's just where there's no. They don't have it, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of. I'm so sick of It'd be one thing if this was a mob. I am so sick of one person being able to dictate the education of thousands. We just got finished talking about how some of these high schools have 3,500 kids. So you got one parent mad, one parent feeling some kind of way, one ignorant ass who just happens to have the loudest voice in the room being able to dictate. I'm sick of it.
But here's the deal, really, be they're passing laws for no reason, for situations that are not there. Have parents not always had the right to say, I don't want my child to read a book? Absolutely. That's always been in place at every school across the country. If a if the school is reading a book, you as a parent can say, I don't want my child to read that. And guess what? Your child doesn't have to read it. But that doesn't mean you get to dictate to every other parent and every other child in that school, in that classroom, in that district that they don't have the right to read that.
Quiet as is kept, and I don't think a lot of parents know this. Quiet as is kept, you can still opt your child out of learning about evolution. All you gotta do is
Hmm.
write a letter to the school saying this is against our religious belief, and
That's
the, and the,
right.
and the student is exempt. Now, what has to happen though is a teacher still has to prepare a lesson plan for your child to still get a grade, but they do not have to learn about evolution. So you're right. Nobody is saying that you have to teach your child this. You can opt your child out of learning about the poem or learning about evolution or reading this particular book. The school just has to provide an equitable assignment. But again, you don't get to dictate the rest of the school. Well, you shouldn't. I ain't gonna say you don't because you do, but you shouldn't.
And it's all the demographics as well. This school is located in what we call Hialeah Gardens area, Miami Lakes,
Oh,
close
I'm
to
actually
Hialeah
familiar with
Gardens,
Hialeah. Yeah, I've
which
heard of
is
Hialeah.
a very, very, very Cuban populated area. So they're going to coalesce and acquiesce to the demands of this one parent. Damn how anyone else feels. It's right off of 826, right off to the big turn on 826. Hmm. Anyway, really be that's all we got. We got to go plan this gut fume.
All right, y'all meet us. Now we had a good number in here today, you guys. We had almost 40 people in the room. So
We
thank
have
you for
41
being.
at one point when I
Oh, we
looked.
have 41. All right. Well, thank
Hmm.
y'all for being here. Now, listen, I want all 49, 40, Lord, 39 of y'all that's in here right now. I need y'all to meet me over to El Teddy's house. Tracy has been dropping the link, but it is spelled EL, just right there on the screen. We got to go plan this funeral, okay? Now, people have already started telling me what they bring into the repast, and I appreciate that. We definitely gonna need your dishes for the repast, but we got to plan this program for the funeral, okay? Now, we're gonna be over there in what 5 minutes, 10 minutes, El Teddy?
Not even.
All right, not even. All right, so we're
We're
gonna
going
shut
right
the
over
station.
there. It was planned for 5:15. It's 5:20 now.
Oh well, let's go. All right, we out of here, y'all. Peace. I'm hitting the button. I am hitting